NFL Week 7 Power Rankings. I am paring down my list for the first time this season to 10 teams. Look, we're 6 weeks into the season. We're now in Week 7. We've seen enough of these teams. It's time for them to put 60 minutes of football together on both sides of the ball. As I always do, I start with a screen of respect. These are teams that did not make my top 10. If you're a fan of any of these teams, please comment below. Tell me why you think they should be on this list and who you think I should take off this list to find them some space. But in no order here, let me just go from left to right here. The Indianapolis Colts, 4-2. I have no problem with the Colts other than I haven't really seen the offense look great. It's hard to do that when your top receiving options are injured yet again. The Indianapolis Colts defense is legit. I like them quite a bit. They might be my favorite defense in the league, but the offense is scaring me a little bit. And to fall down, to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the first week of the season and then to almost lose against the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm just not seeing the elite Indianapolis Colts. They aren't fulfilling their potential. Yes, I think they have great potential for the season, but I need to see it on the field. I'm sick of waiting for the potential. Let's see it. The New Orleans Saints, look, they're 3-2. They've had a bye week. There's just some better teams that have put it on the field so far, but if I have to, wager on one of these teams to win the Super Bowl, I got to say, the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who beat the Saints who lost to the Saints earlier this year, and the Saints beating the Buccaneers. I like those two teams quite a bit. They're both going to be in the playoffs. Bovada has the New Orleans Saints at plus 1,000. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also at plus 1,000, so they're great Super Bowl threats. The Cleveland Browns, I like them, but you saw against the Pittsburgh Steelers that they have a flaw, and the flaw is when their running game isn't going, their passing game doesn't do enough to pick them up against elite teams. That's the key here. If they were playing the Minnesota Vikings, if they were playing the Atlanta Falcons, I'm sure their passing game would have done just fine if the run was stopped. But playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, playing the Baltimore Ravens, who they've lost to both in relatively convincing fashion, that's a problem. When you get to January, when you get to possibly February, you're going to play teams that can stop the run. Baker Mayfield, time to step up. The Las Vegas Raiders, I actually took them off of my list. I think they were 11 last week, but I had them featured. The only reason I took them off the list is because there's some better 4-2 teams that have shown it on the field. I like the Raiders quite a bit. I still predict them to be in the playoffs as I did before the season. I respect the run game. The defense is better than people think they are. The Raiders, for the last year and a half, I've been betting them because people have been underestimating them. I'm not underestimating them. This is simply a factor of them. I just couldn't fit them in against some other teams that have been putting it together on the field a little bit more convincingly. But look, the Raiders have a tough test against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week. The winner of that game will be in the top 10. San Francisco 49ers, I don't want to belittle what this team has done. Yes, they've had a couple wins against the Giants and the Jets. Who cares about those? But beating the Rams last week, and the Rams are in my top list. 49ers fans are going to say, hey, what's going on here? Yada, yada, yada. I get it. I like the 49ers. They're getting better offensively. Jimmy Garoppolo's had the ankle. He looked awful against Miami. I wasn't freaking out. He looked better against San Francisco. Let's see what happens this week against New England. But San Francisco, they've had a pretty nasty start of the year other than those couple of gimme wins against the New York Jets, whereas the Rams started off playing against the NFC East. 4 of their 4 wins for the Rams have been in the NFC East. We'll see what happens. The San Francisco 49ers have an easier schedule as we move forward. We'll see. But the NFC West, man, that's a tough division. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after eviscerating the Green Bay Packers, who, yes, are still on the list, I left them off. Why? Because I had to pick between them and the Chicago Bears, and the Chicago Bears beat them. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are one of the very few teams at this point that I say are a legit Super Bowl threat. I've seen 60 minutes of football defensively. I've seen 60 minutes of football offensively. Even as I'm talking right now, I'm regretting not putting them on the top 10, but that's how it works out. So Buccaneers fans, let me have it, and I think I would have a hard time disagreeing with you, or at least arguing with you, because Tampa Bay Buccaneers really looked great last week. And they are only going to get better. They have a high ceiling this year. But let's move into my top 10. Number 10, we'll just start with them. The Chicago Bears, who I like quite a bit, as I said. Now, the Chicago Bears, everybody's hating on them because their margin of victory isn't great. Everybody's hating on them because their offense hasn't looked great. Let's not ignore the defense. This isn't the 28 Chicago Bears defense, not quite, but this is the second year with Pagano. We expected them to have a better year defensively, and this defense is good enough to keep them in every game. Don't think that this offense is going to sputter all year long. They will figure it out. Foles is decent enough, and they actually do have some weapons in the receiving game. They'll be okay. And at this point, let's be honest about this. The way the season's going to shake out, the Chicago Bears, if they finish the last 10 games here, if they finish 4-6, they're probably going to be in that 7 seed discussion. If they play 500 ball from now on, and they are in the NFC North, they have a good shot. Bovada has them at plus 3,500 to get into the Super Bowl. So or to win the Super Bowl, I should say. So it's not bad, 35-1. Los Angeles Rams at number 9, 4-2. The loss to San Francisco looked somewhat convincing, but San Francisco was ready to go in that game. It looked like the Rams weren't necessarily ready to go. I like the defense a lot more, but it does concern me. I wouldn't say it concerns me, but it's worth noting that their 4 wins are against the putrid NFC East. Let's see them beat another team outside that division, and we'll move them up the list here. The Bears and the Rams play on Monday Night Football. The winner of that game will be moving up. The loser of that game will be moving off the rankings. Number 8, the Arizona Cardinals. What they did to Dallas on Monday Night Football, you have to respect what they did. Vance Joseph keeping the pressure on Andy Dalton. He could not set his feet all night. He could not find anybody to throw to. I don't think I saw a single ball go more than 10 yards through the air. Look, the Arizona Cardinals are legitimate. Their offense is legitimate, and they have a big matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. It's a statement game for both of those teams. Let's see what happens. Bovada, by the way, has Arizona Cardinals at plus 5,000 win the Super Bowl, so they're still not getting a lot of respect from the bettors out there. Number 7 on my list. You had to move them down. I'm sorry, 2 losses in a row. Buffalo Bills, but I still love the Bills. You lose to the best 2 teams on your schedule thus far, the Tennessee Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs in consecutive weeks. Well, you have the New York Jets this week. Time to beat a team by 30 points. Let's see it, Buffalo. I'm probably going to be moving Buffalo up the list this week after this game, but I don't want to see Buffalo fall flat. My big concern here is the defense. I keep waiting for them to be that elite Buffalo Bills defense that we all know and love. I haven't seen it yet. The offense is obviously great, but I need to see it from the defense. Number 6 on this list, probably too low if you're a fan. I get it. You let me know. Comment below. The Baltimore Ravens, 5-1. You can see Bovada has them at plus 700 to win the Super Bowl. That's 7-1, everybody. That's a nice... it's a nice level of respect. My issue with Baltimore, as a few teams, they're going to have to deal with Kansas City. They're going to have to deal with the Tennessee Titans, who ousted them last year in the playoffs, and they're going to have to deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. We're going to get Baltimore and Pittsburgh in a couple of weeks here, which is going to be great. But my point is, those teams can probably take away or at least neutralize the run for a little bit, and those teams have the ability to get out to a 2 or 3 score lead. Lamar Jackson, I'm seeing a lot of 18s of 30s. Yes, your running game is fantastic, but if you can't run and kill the clock in the fourth quarter and you just have to pass downfield, do the Baltimore Ravens, can they play that style of football? I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen evidence of it. I know they can score 35 points in a game, but that's when they're controlling the game. That's when they're controlling the clock, and that's when they're running the ball down everybody's throats. What's going to happen when they can't do that in the third and the fourth quarter because they don't have enough time to do that? I want to see proof. That's why I have the Ravens down at number 6. And that's why I have the Green Bay Packers up at number 5. 4-1. Bovada has them at plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. And the reason I like them is, look, if I have to bet on either Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson to win a Super Bowl, I'm going to go with the guy who's done it before. I think that's very fair. I don't care how the Green Bay Packers looked. Tampa Bay last week, it was a buzzsaw. Tampa Bay coming off a pretty tough loss. Green Bay, a lot of stuff had been stacking right for them. Honestly, kind of the momentum, you could see that coming. And when was the last time Aaron Rodgers threw 2 crippling interceptions on 2 straight drives, maybe even 2 straight passes, a pick 6 and then a pick all the way down to the 3-yard line, which they scored on? That game was over when that happened. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to play a little bit better against the Houston Texans this week. So Green Bay Packers 4-1. I'm not freaking out. Sometimes the team just gets beat. Sometimes the team just gets dominated. But it's a good character building week. I want to see Green Bay come out on fire next week, but I'm not panicking. I'm not going to hit the panic button based on that one game. Number 4, the Tennessee Titans, 5-0. Plus 2,200 according to Bovada to win the Super Bowl. I like the Titans quite a bit. I've liked them last year. I said coming into the 2019 season, what are you doing starting Marcus Mariota? Tannehill should be the guy. They finally made the change. You know what I did? I started betting on the Tennessee Titans, and I started winning a lot. I've been watching this Tennessee Titans team for years under the Munchak, the exotic smash mouth and all that stuff. Tennessee Titans only needed a quarterback that could throw the ball downfield. That's the only piece they were missing. That was the only component. Tannehill was that guy. Now, I'll be honest with you, he's better than I thought he'd be. But, that's a good problem to have if you're Tennessee. Now, the reason I don't have them higher, because they're undefeated. So you're like, hey, there are only 3 undefeated teams in the league. Why didn't you have them in the top 3? The only reason I don't have them above the Chiefs is because I haven't seen the defense string it together. And if I'm looking at a shootout game, and yes, I know the Titans beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the last regular season. They lost in the AFC Championship game. And I remember that regular season game. Do you Titans fans? Tennessee couldn't even get a kick past the line of scrimmage. They had a bobbled snap, and then they had a blocked field goal. It's ridiculous. Kansas City probably should have won that game, or at least tied it, or whatever it was. The Tennessee Titans, though, here's the deal. They're top 3 team in the conference. I have no problem saying that. And I love a team that can run the ball, and I love the team that can pass the ball, because that means you can win both ways offensively. Unlike, in my opinion, the Baltimore Ravens or the Cleveland Browns, if the run game is shut down, Tannehill is good enough at quarterback, and they have enough weapons to beat you in the passing game. But I want to see the defense fulfill its potential. That's good news if you're Titans fans. From my point of view, that's a good thing. That means you have a higher ceiling. That means you haven't fulfilled your potential. You need to fill your potential in January, and you haven't fulfilled your potential, and you're still undefeated. That's a good thing. Number 3 on this list is the Kansas City Chiefs, or are the Kansas City Chiefs. They are at 5-1, and you can see Bovada has them at plus 550 to win the Super Bowl, and for good reason. This team, when they play good competition, they play up. You saw them come out flat against the Raiders. Congrats and respect to the Raiders. You saw them come out flat against the Chargers, and they might come out flat again against the Denver Broncos. Remember last year they were 6-4. I might have even dropped them off my top 10 list. I at least flirted with the idea of it. But this is the deal, man. When the chips are on the table, Kansas City. I mean, shoot, we saw in the playoffs they only played one half of football in all of those games, including the Super Bowl. But when they turn it on, they're impossible to stop. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the Kansas City Chiefs. I got to put them number 3. And if the playoffs started today, I'd have a hard time not putting them as my number 1 Super Bowl pick. Just to be honest with you guys, I know they have the loss to the Raiders, but I'm not worried about that. They're a really good team. Number 2 on my list, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Brad, my co-host of the Get Paid podcast, called the Pittsburgh Steelers to upset everybody and get in the Super Bowl. I called them to upset everybody and get in the AFC Championship game. I still have, by the way, the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers in that AFC Championship game. Brad has the other way. But the bottom line here is the Pittsburgh Steelers are for real. This is a team that went 8-6 without Roethlisberger last year. This is a team that is now 5-0 with Roethlisberger this year. Bovada has them at plus 2,200 to win the Super Bowl. And I think that's great value, everybody. They're a legit team. Now, they played the Tennessee Titans. The winner of that game, I'm going to tell everybody that winner of that game will be an undefeated, and they will either be number 1 or tied for number 1 in next week's power rankings. Just, you got to respect these 2 teams. I do. I don't care if who loses, because the loser of that Steelers and Titans game is still going to be really high up on the list. But this is a big game. I cannot wait to watch it. Number 1 on my list, the Seattle Seahawks, who are on a bye week. Bovada has them at plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. I called the Seattle Seahawks before the season to be the NFC representative of the of the conference to make it to the Super Bowl. My pick was Kansas City Chiefs versus Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks somewhat of an upset. They're only at plus 1,800. Look, as is the case with the Tennessee Titans defense, this defense is going to get better. They've had a bye week to try to figure some things out. They haven't fulfilled their potential yet. Russell Wilson is playing MVP football. He is my MVP for the first part of the season. 5-0 Seattle Seahawks. Their defense will get better. You can make an argument that the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing better right now, and I think that would be a strong argument, Steelers fans. But either way, these teams are all probably going to have to deal with one another. I love the NFL. I love the football that we're seeing this year. There's a lot to like at the top. Seattle currently reigns supreme at number 1. We'll see what happens. Big game against the Cardinals. Steelers, big game against the Titans. Both number 1, 2, 4, and 8. All 4 of those teams play each other. So we're going to see a lot of shifting in this top 10 next week. Thanks, everybody. Once again, please comment below. Tell me who should be in the top 10 if you didn't like my top 10. And if you didn't like a team in there, tell me who to take off. I know everybody's going to say Chicago. I disagree with that. The defense is legit. Got to respect the defense. Thanks, everyone.